Today's Gospel reading from St. Luke. We read about Jesus was out amongst the multitudes. He had just left the area of the Gadarenes, and he had gotten in his boat and left the Gadarenes to their immoral and illegal behavior. And now he was on the other side of Galilee, and he was back in and being pressed by throngs of people who were following him. And there came a man before him. The scriptures tell us was a ruler of the synagogue. He was like the council president of the synagogue. He was a ruler of the synagogue. Very important, very prestigious. And he came and he fell down at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house. Why? Because he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. And so he fell down on his knees in front of Jesus and begged Jesus to come and heal his daughter. You notice he didn't go to the chief priests. He didn't go to the scribes or the Pharisees. They couldn't help him. Possibly he had been to them already, and they couldn't help him. So he went to Jesus, and he asked Jesus to help him. Even though he was a Jew of high-ranking position, and Jesus was ridiculed by the hierarchy of the Jewish temple, this man, council president, head of the synagogue, went to Jesus asking for help. But the scripture goes on and says, another woman, a woman, having a flow of blood for 12 years, who had spent all her livelihood on physicians and could not be healed by any, came from behind and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her flow of blood stopped. Again, another example of a woman who had reached out to every resource that she had humanly possible, asking for help and asking for a cure and asking for healing, and no one could help her. So she came to Jesus also, just like Jairus. And she touched the hem of his garment and was healed. And of course, Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And Peter was with him, and he said, "Master, you're being surrounded by a huge throng here, and you ask who touched you?" And Jesus said, "Somebody touched me, for I perceive power going out from me." Now Jesus knew who touched him. But this was a call to the woman who touched him to voluntarily come forward and witness of this miracle. Jesus was giving her a choice, just as he gives us a choice in everything that we do. And the scripture says, now when the woman saw that she was not hidden, because other people saw her, and she knew herself that Jesus knew that somebody had touched her, she came trembling in the fear of God, and falling down before him, she declared to him in the presence of all the people the reason she had touched him and how she was healed immediately. She didn't try to hide the fact that Christ had worked a miracle in her life. She didn't try to hide the fact that she had asked Jesus for help. And she declared in front of all the people what the problem was, which is even more intimate, because she had a flow of blood, and it's not something that people go around broadcasting. But she had this flow of blood, and she declared in front of all the people what she had, how Christ healed her, and how she was healed immediately. She witnessed for Jesus Christ and the glory of God. And what did Jesus do? He said to her, "Daughter, be of good cheer. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And then someone came to Jairus and said, "Don't trouble the teacher anymore. Your daughter is dead." I'm sure it must have been crushing news for Jairus. But Jesus heard the conversation. And he said, "Do not be afraid, Only believe, and she will be made well. You see, only believe. And he said this not to Jairus only. He was saying this to the crowd that was around him. And the crowd that said, don't bother the teacher anymore, your daughter is dead. He was saying it to them also. Just believe, only believe, and she will be made well. So he went to Jairus' house. And he permitted no one to go in except Peter, James, and John, the father and the mother of the girl. And he did this for a very good reason, which we see in the next verse. Now all who wept and mourned for her, but he said, do not weep, she is not dead, but sleeping. And they ridiculed him, knowing that she was dead. You see, they didn't believe. And Jesus just got through saying, only believe and she'll be made well. But they didn't believe. And so he put them all outside. Very important concept here. He put them all outside. You see, Jesus Christ, God the Father, and as an extension, Jesus Christ, puts those who don't believe outside. And he warned us that if we don't believe, at the end of times, we will be put outside, into the abyss, where there will be no reconciliation. And he's telling these people here, you don't believe, out. If you don't believe, out. You have a choice, but if you don't believe, out. And he took the little girl by the hand and he said, little girl, arise. And her spirit returned to her and she immediately arose. And he commanded that she be given something to eat. Why? He didn't want those who were there to think that she was a ghost. He wanted physical proof that she was physically alive and a physical person. So they gave her something to eat. You can't give a ghost something to eat. And her parents were astonished. And he charged them to tell no one what had happened. But of course he knew that they would. Again, he wanted them to witness for what they had seen. He wanted the woman with the flow of blood to witness voluntarily. He wanted the parents of this little girl to witness, but voluntarily. You notice he didn't say, go out and tell everyone. He wanted that to be their choice. So he said, tell no one what happened. They had a choice. They could or they could not. And they would go out. They would choose and go out and tell other people what had happened to the glory of God. We learn from this gospel reading, first of all, that we have to believe, that we have to have faith, and then when we are blessed with either good fortune or blessings of God or healings, whatever it is that we're blessed with by God, we have a responsibility then to witness for Christ, to tell others what has happened to us and what Christ has done for us. That is what we are charged to do. That is how the good news of Jesus Christ gets spread throughout all the land and throughout all the world, is by those who witness about the goodness of God and the impact that it has had on their individual lives. Think about your own life. Something good has happened in your life? Think about it. A blessing from God. Did you tell anyone about it, or did you keep it to yourself? Or even worse, have you only thought about the bad things that have happened in your life? The problems, the concerns. And you focus on that only, instead of on the wonderful blessings that God has given you. Start out by thanking God for both the good and the bad. We learn lessons from the bad, and we receive great blessings and fulfillment from the good. But we think we should give God thanks for both. And then, when we are blessed, when great things do happen to us, as small as they may be, talk about it. Talk about it with your neighbors, your friends. Broadcast it. Let others know what good God has done for you. Because it will uplift them. It will give them encouragement. It will inspire them. It will make them think. And it may even draw them back to Christ if they are beginning to stray, or the kingdom of heaven, or the church. Talk about it. relate your experience. Let others know what good things God has done for you. And if we do that, God will bring us back blessings 100-fold, because we will have witnessed for Him, and we will help others come back to the kingdom of heaven.